he said and how he said it actually impacted the way that I think. And I was working at Charis Camp as the director of discipleship. I had the privilege of inviting guest speakers, and I invited him in to speak at a teen camp, and he came and he blessed not just the teenagers, but all of us, all the leaders as well. And so I'm really excited that he's here, that he said yes to offer his gift to us during this season. So I'm just going to pray for him, and then we will be blessed. So Father, I praise you for this, your child, Brock Adams. I thank you, Father, for the gifts you've given him, for his love of your word, and we just declare that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. I pray that you would give him incredible amount of freedom as he shares, and give us freedom as we hear, and we just say, yes, Jesus, we give you permission to shine your light on our heads and our hearts, in Jesus' name, amen.
All right. Thank you, Marty. That last song, so I'm trying to think, it's about 2000, I guess pretty much 25 years ago, where God was I grew up Christian, and the relationship part was kind of absent. I was focused more on the religion aspect. And then a bunch of stuff happened and went through some difficult times. And as a teenager, one of the songs that strongly impacted me was Freedom, where I was like, you know what, I would like freedom in my life, like in my soul. And so I haven't heard that song, I don't know, it's been a long time. And so it's just funny how life goes on and you do your thing, and then here I am, all these years later, and then kind of brought back to where I was when I was, 14 or so years old. So nothing's a fluke or a coincidence. So thank you for choosing that song. So last year I worked at CSS, and on one of my drives to work, I drove by where your church building used to be, and it was like a stark, like, whoa, what just happened? And I remember seeing cars lined up. I saw a whole bunch of, which I assume would have been you folks, would have been there, and I just thought, wow, that is hard, that is heavy, and that is unexpected. And so for me, like from a distance, I've just been intrigued as to, thinking, how is this group going to respond? And the odd time or two, I've thought about this congregation, and so I prayed for you. And as I was getting ready for this particular message, I thought of something. And so about 5-6 years ago, my wife and I had some big transitions in our lives. And one of the things we both felt individually, and then we talked about it, and we're like, whoa, okay, that's wild. That's totally, from God. When God speaks to you as an individual, and then you come back together, and you're like, we're both hearing the same thing. It was pretty awesome. And what we were feeling and thinking was this. For me, I had a picture of the Israelites in the desert when I was praying, and then specifically the concept of fire by night. And so for me, what I like to do is I like to have everything figured out. I like to take out all the hidden variables. I like to see all the threats and dangers, and I like to plan accordingly. And then I make backup plans for those plans. And so I get everything sorted out and figured out, right? But unfortunately for people like me, that's not how God operates. There's this thing called faith that he requires his followers to develop. And so when for me, what was, I guess, striking about picturing this time in my life as like a fire by night is that when it's dark and there's a fire, like even if you imagine like a campfire, everything's like kind of warm and it's nice within the perimeter of the fire, and then you take a few steps back and it's a bit of an unknown, right? You don't know what danger or what obstacles are lurking around, and especially if you're considering, I'm going to follow God like the Israelites did, fire by night. You don't even really know what direction you're headed. There are no landmarks. So you don't really know where you're going. You don't know what's over there. But your only job, if you're the Israelites, is to just focus on the fire, to focus on God, trusting that as you follow him, he takes you where you need to go. So my wife and I were just like, yeah, that's where we feel like God's leading us, and that's what he's saying to us. And so this, especially this week, as I was praying for all of us here and preparing that, I felt that it's like it almost seems as if this group's in a bit of a similar situation where it's like a fire by night, where there's an opportunity to just maybe focus and think and freak out and worry and stress about all the things in the darkness that you can't see and can't plan for and can't sort out. But what if God's just saying, you know what, just focus on me. Just focus on me. Follow me. Don't worry about all that other stuff that you can't see. Just follow me. And when it's light out again, you'll be exactly where you need to be. It's also serendipitous that we're here today in this particular church. When I was a youth pastor, I was a youth pastor for over 11 years here locally, and for a couple of years, our youth ministry didn't have a home. And so we met in here. And some of my best memories as a youth pastor were actually in this particular building. And one of the great passions of my life, there are a lot of things I like. I love sports. I've got a wife and kids, and I love my family. I love coaching sports. I'm a teacher. I love social studies. I love history especially, and this is a historical book. And for me, I believe this book can transform anybody's life. When I was a youth pastor, I used to write. I'd open a Bible, I'd give it to someone, and I would write, "When life doesn't make sense, this book will." And I believe this book transforms lives in a way that nothing else could. So any opportunity that I have to share this book, I just feel very thankful and grateful for. It is my belief that this book, even though it was written thousands of years ago, is relevant and applicable to us today, because humans are still human. It doesn't matter what time, what culture, geographically, where you're set up, where you live, humans are still humans. And we still have the same highs and lows of the human experience as anyone else does. And so what's written in here, my belief is that it's timeless, it's relevant, and it's applicable. But one of the funny things I find, though, is whenever people talk about history, is that what they like to do, and it's called presentism. And so that means you take the ideals and the opinions and the values of the present, and then you impose them on those of the past. But that's foolish, right? It's like, because people today are going to judge everything we've done and said based on their values and beliefs and ideas of the future. That's not really fair, is it? But that's kind of what we do. So in regards to the Bible, what we often do is we look and we go, I can't believe they did that. What is wrong with them? You know, if I was there at that time, if I was there, I would have said to Goliath, you know what, buddy, you listen up. It's like, no. All of us would have been running for the hills, right? And so it's easy to just take our present context, especially when we know how the story ends, and then impose it on these scenarios and people of the past. And so to best, in my opinion, understand history, and especially the contents of this book, what we want to do is put ourselves in the position of the people who were experiencing this in real time. And so as or if you've been going through the series with the Ten Commandments, I find that whole scenario fascinating. Because if we rewind a little bit, the Israelites were slaves for centuries. And it just got progressively harsher and harsher. Then all of a sudden, they're free. So imagine all you've ever known is slavery and hardship. And now you're free. What's like, okay, what now? What do you do? Like you hit the goal, you hit the dream, and then you're like, where do we go from here? And so God ends up saying, you know what? I've got an idea. I'm going to take Moses, and we're going to have a discussion, and I'm going to tell him how I want this new nation, pretty much this undeveloped nation of people, to be built. The infrastructure, the foundation, the structure of what will become Israel, I will explain how it will be built. And the foundation will be these 10 ideas. He could have chose 4 million. He could have chose 3. He chose 10. And to me, like how I picture it is this. Imagine your experience in some way, shape, or form in life. And then you have a young person comes up to you and says, what advice do you have for me? Right? Normally, like people say, well, work hard, study lots, don't quit, that sort of thing, right? But God, in his infinite wisdom, knowing that we'd be talking about this thousands of years later, chose 10 things. So there's no fluke, there's no coincidence, it's intentional. And the 10 things he chose became the 10 Commandments, where he pretty much made a decision. These are the 10 things that this nation will be built on. These are the 10 things. And I want people to reflect these 10 characteristics, individually and then collectively as a nation. And we will be set apart because of these 10 commandments. And then the one of them is do not lie. Do not bear false witness. So God chose that one. And that's interesting to me because nothing's fluke. Nothing's coincidence with God. He chose that one specifically. So in essence, it would be easy to go, yeah, okay, cool, don't lie. Lying's wrong, whatever, right? But what is lying exactly? Like, what does he mean, do not bear false witness? Because lying can mean a variety of things. It can be as simple as like not telling the truth, right? Being dishonest, right? Not being honest, right? Like I think about, I don't know if you've ever had your mouth washed out with soap because you lied or said, cuss words or something. I thought about that in my childhood. There's even one story that popped up, and it's funny how stories randomly enter your mind, where I was trying to buy a vehicle, and I did like typical, like just skimmed the description, didn't really pay attention, and then I show up, and this guy's showing me the car, and he's telling me all these car things. I don't know anything about cars. So instead of being honest and telling him, I don't really know what you're talking about, I just play along. Oh, yeah, horsepower. Oh, yeah, that engine. Oh, yeah, okay, I totally got it. Oh, awesome. Sounds great. And then he's like, why don't we take it for a test drive? And I say, sure, let's do it. So I hop in, and I notice something I didn't notice in the previous 20 minutes of discussing the vehicle, or that I failed to read in the description, right, online. It's a standard. I don't drive standard. I don't know how, okay? And I know there was an era where everyone had to drive standard, especially to be manly, but I grew up in an era where I had a friend where his parents were like, you're going to learn how to drive a standard in case you're ever stuck in a situation. Then there'd be times where he would be like, at people's houses, and he's like, I don't want to go home. Can someone drive me home? And they'd be like, none of us know how to drive standard. So it actually got him stuck in places he didn't want to be. But anyways, I was one of those guys that never grew up driving standard, and so I could have been honest with him. I could have said, I don't know how to drive standard, but I just thought, I'm just going to play it cool. I said, yeah, you know what? This seems like a great ride. I think, I got somewhere I got to be. And he's like, you got to take it for a test drive. And I said, you know what? You seem like such a nice guy, such a trustworthy person. I don't need to take it for a test drive. I believe you. I trust you. And he looks at me and he goes, no, you should take it for a test drive. And I'm like, I trust you, man. We don't even need to go there. And then I just left. I could have been honest with him, but I said no. I decided not to. I decided to try to play it off and try to be cool. So there's like flat out like dishonesty, which is a type of a lie. There are other types of lies, like there are lies of omission, right? That's when we alter, or I guess more or less omit certain details that would change how a situation is perceived. So imagine a group of teenagers and their parents ask them, well, what did you get up to, last night? And they say, oh, I hung out with my friends. Is that true? It sure is. Are there certain details being omitted? Quite possibly, yes. Or there are lies of commission, right, where we change the narrative altogether to paint a different picture of what transpired. Right? So it would be like, oh, I hung out with my friends and we studied. Right? But is that really what happened? Not necessarily. Right? There are lies, well, people like to call them white lies. Oh, it's just a little lie. It's no big deal. But the issue with that line of thinking is that who gets to decide what a small and a big lie is? And then on top of all that, it's like, oh, it's not going to hurt anybody. Well, how do you know that? How does anybody know that? How does anyone know the ramifications of a decision? We actually just don't. Then there's stuff like lying on a resume, right? You know how people like fancy things up so it sounds like better than what it is? So you would say something like, experienced at curating cuisine for various dietary needs, and you're making craft dinner for your younger siblings, right? And so some want ketchup, some want barbecue sauce, some want mustard on it, right? So which ties into a bit to exaggeration. Right? Exaggeration is when we make stories seem funnier, better, to make it more enjoyable to listen to and to make ourselves look better. A lot of guys do this, especially with sports, which like, oh man, at the driving range, I was by myself. I wish people were there. You should have seen how far I was hitting that ball. Or that went fishing by myself the other day. You should have seen the size of that thing. Right? Exaggeration. But in essence, that's still a lie because we're not fully telling the truth. Cheating is lying as well. Cheating is lying. I was in grade 4, so this is like 30 years ago, and I still remember this like to this day where I cheated. I looked at someone's answers on a salmon anatomy test that we had in grade 4, and it was parent-teacher night. My parents come in, and then my teacher pulls out the test, and I thought he was gonna like ream me out, like kick me to the curb because he found out I cheated. But what he did was way worse. He just says, Brock, I just want to tell you how proud I am of you. You've done so well. Look at this test. So you got a perfect score. And I'm just nodding, and he says to my parents, you should be so proud of him. I'm incredibly proud of what this guy's done in this class. He's such a good kid. And my parents are beaming, he's smiling, and I just wanted to yell, I'm a cheater, I'm a liar, I'm a fraud, but I just didn't have the courage. And I've never forgotten how I felt in that moment, because cheating is a form of lying. So there are different ways that we lie, but I guess maybe another way to look at it, or another question to ask is, well, why do we lie? Because statistically speaking, the average human lies multiple times a day, and we're lied to even more than that. Some studies have shown up to like 20 to 100 times a day that we're lied to. So we know that we lie, or lying, I guess you could say, is commonplace, but why do we do it? I think one of the reasons that we lie so often is to usually protect other people's feelings. That's probably one of the most common reasons. Do you love my haircut? You're like, okay, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings, so I'll say. Or maybe you're in a scenario where you're like, if I say it doesn't look good, I'm protecting myself here. I better just say it does look good, right? We don't want to hurt someone's feelings. Or that's where you get the, oh, it's not you, it's me, when someone breaks up with another person. Well, of course it's them. You don't have the courage to tell them they smell funny, so you just say it's you. Or if you're a Christian and you want to spiritualize it, you say, you know what, God's been speaking to me, and he's telling me that I just need to go through a season of singleness. And I just need to focus on him right now. And so I'm sorry, but we've just got to end this. Right? And they blame God and use him as a scapegoat. But then conveniently, another cute person shows up 2 weeks later, and that season of singleness has just ended. Right? So we want to protect people. Other times people lie because we want to get out of trouble. Kids do this all the time. Right? And kids, it's funny, as a kid, you can never figure out, like, how did they know? Well, they found out because your hands are covered with ice cream. There's a melted ice cream trail from the kitchen to your room. There's a tub of ice cream under your bed, and it's all over your face. That's all. It wasn't me. I didn't touch it. I don't know where the ice cream went. It's natural for kids. I'm just going to lie to get out of trouble. But it happens as adults too. We lie to get ourselves out of trouble when we're in a sticky situation. People also lie so others think better of themselves. Or they lie so people think less of others, or to manipulate people. Right? Some people look at other humans as pawns in their own little game of life, and if I can lie and manipulate and deceive, I can achieve the things that I want. And it happens pretty much if you watch any reality TV show. That's in essence what it's about. So why would God bring up lying? Why would it be important to him? I want to play a quick game with you. I want you to complete the sentence for me, okay? Satan is the father of? Blank is his mother tongue. Deceit, lying, yeah. So when we lie, we actually are following the example of Satan. And when we are honest, and when we tell the truth, we're following the example of our Heavenly Father. God is honest. God is truthful. And he wants his children to model that. And one of the ways that we can model God's love to this world is to be people that are honest and to be people that are truthful. That's a value he has. And it's not just for ancient Israel, it's for every single one of us today. And see, the problem with lying is that it interferes with our ability to connect and relate. I guess first off with God, where it's not that God can't reach us. It's almost like when we lie and when we're dishonest and we live lives of deceit, it's like we almost put a barrier between us and God in a spiritual sense. Because God operates in reality. God operates in truth and in honesty. And when we decide to be dishonest, and we decide to lie, and we decide to be people that don't value truth and reality, it's like we're unable to receive what God's trying to send us because he's operating on a different signal. And so it's like we're willingly putting a barrier there between us and him. And the same is true relationally with other people. When we lie, we put up barriers between us and other human beings. We cannot have trust without truth. I don't want you to say any names out loud, but there are people in your life, as soon as they tell a story, a couple people around them and they start talking, you're like, nah, you just checked out. Because you know they're full of it. You don't believe a word they say. Or it's New Year's, right? And they're like, you know what? This year it's going to be different. In your mind, you're like, no, it's not. No, it's not. All of you right now, you're thinking of people. You don't believe them. You don't trust them. We live in this world that's so, it's like, it's curated, it's crafted, and in so many ways it's manipulated and it's deceptive. It's not full of truth or honesty. That's why there's an expression I hate it, and people have told it to me my whole life. Why don't you tell me what you really think? Why don't you tell me how you really feel? I think you should. The underlying statement is you shouldn't tell people how you think or feel. But why? Like, why do we just accept that as normal? Especially when it serves as a barrier between us and other human beings. So you all had people in your minds where you're like, I don't believe a word they're saying. I never take what they say seriously. Exactly. Because when we lie to others and when we lie to ourselves, it serves as a barrier between people trusting and connecting with us. In other words, another way to look at it is this. And when I say you, I don't mean you individually. I mean like all of us here, okay? Your word should mean something. Your word should have weight. So when you say you're going to do something, the people in your life should be like, yeah, they will. I've seen them do that. They follow through on their word. They are who they say they are. They do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it. Or when you tell a story or you give an account of someone, it's like, yeah, for sure. They're telling the truth. That's just who they are. That's just what they've done. Your word should matter. They should have weight. And we live in a world, sadly, where that's just not the case. I think honesty and truth is refreshing. My granddad was an awesome, awesome man. He was honest. He was an honest and sincere man. Now I think this story takes place in about the 50s. I don't want to complicate with all different family names, dynamics. We'll just say my granddad and a younger extended family member had a conversation. My granddad said, I'm selling my house, I'm buying this other one. And the younger extended family member at the time, so this is like the 50s, he's like, I'd like to buy the house from you. I just can't afford it right now, and I know I got to go to the bank, and maybe we can work out some sort of deal. So my granddad says, sure, do whatever you got to do. And so this younger extended family member goes to the bank, and he says, I would like a loan for a house. And they said, okay, have you bought it yet? No, but this family member, my grandfather, he's going to sell it to me. And he's like, you know that for sure? And he goes, yep. And he's like, so you want us to take out a loan that you're going to have to pay back without any sort of like paper evidence signaling that he's for sure selling his house to you? And he goes, that's right. Why would you believe him? He's like, he wrote a note. I, Gabriel Adams, will sell my house to so-and-so. And he's like, you believe him? And he's like, yep. Why? Because he said he would do it. He's a man of his word. And the bank's like, we're happy to take your money, but like, you want this? And he's like, yep. And obviously wouldn't fly in the world we live in today. But they're like, okay, he says who he said, he does what he says he's going to do. He's a man of character and integrity. Sure, go for it. And there was no problem. Like, just think for a minute if people operated that way, where everyone was just like, no, I trust them, I believe them. Think about how different our society would be. We should be people that others can count on, that we will do what we say we're going to do, that we will be the people that we claim to be. And we resemble God when we choose to live in reality and live in the truth. Now, I want to delve into a story a bit here, which is going to take us, or I guess this is where we'll park for the rest of our time here. It's a story of Nathan the prophet Nathan and King David. And I'm going to summarize the one part, then I want to read a couple of the verses. But what ends up happening is David is at home while everyone else is at war, sees a woman bathing, and he's like, cool, I want her, gets her pregnant, and he's like, uh-oh, this isn't good. So he's like, what can I do to get out of this? Oh, I'll bring her husband home from the battlefield. And then I'll get him a couple days, to rest, and then the timelines will match up and we'll be good. The issue is the husband, Uriah, is like, I can't go on vacation. I'm a leader here. The other guys are fighting. With integrity, I can't do that. So he sleeps on the palace steps, foiling David's plot to cover up what he did. And I've always thought for a second, like, imagine being David. You're like, no, I got this. Like, I've done all these horrible things, but I'm going to get out of this. And then you meet a real man of character and integrity. So, like, the man, like, you've had an affair with his wife. You've impregnated his wife. And that man is looking at you and is like, no, king, I will not do this thing because this is my job. This is my duty. I'm not going to go be with my wife. I'm on guard right now. I possibly can't do that. What was that like for David? It's like, wow, this is the man I should be. Right? That would have been a harsh reality for him, a tough pill for him to swallow, which is why he sends him to the front lines to get killed. And then Bathsheba mourns. They wait their mourning period, get together, and he thinks all is good. Then the prophet Nathan comes along. So when we talk about telling people what you really think and what you really feel, something that's important that I've had to learn in my life is you can speak the truth and you should be honest with people, but tact is also a good thing. Right? If you come in guns blazing, hey, listen up, King David. Let me tell you what's what. Probably not going to go well. So he uses tact. It's like, I need your opinion on something. I want to tell you a story. He's like, okay. And he said, so there's this poor family, and they've got this one sheep, and they love it, and it's pretty much like a family member, and they care for it, and they love it with everything they have. Then there's this rich dude who needs a sheep for a feast, and he could pick any sheep he wants, but he just takes the poor family sheep rather than one of his, and this guy's really rich. Obviously, the parallels, right? The sheep, and then Bathsheba and other women, and David could have had other women, but he chooses the one that belongs to someone else. So he's got a story that's a parallel there. And then so he's like, what do you think should happen to this guy, this rich guy that could have had any other sheep, but chooses the sheep that belongs to this family? And then we see in 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 5, David says this. Then David's anger was greatly kindled against the man, and he said to Nathan, as the Lord lives, the man who has done this deserves to die. And then in verse 7, Nathan said to David, you are that man. And then if we fast forward to verse 13, David says to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. So what we see here is how honesty and truth work. They're powerful. Because Nathan looks at David, he's like, that's you, man. And when he's cut to the heart, when he can't justify, because I had a friend tell me in high school, we justify things because we know they're wrong. Like, you don't have to justify reading your Bible and praying for people. We justify things because we know they're wrong. Right? We do all this mental gymnastics to convince ourselves it's probably okay and it's probably fine. Right? But David can't do that anymore because of the tact that Nathan used. And so David had to confront who he really was. And when he was left to deal with who he was, notice how Nathan doesn't condemn him or judge him or make fun of him. He's just like, oh no, that's you, just so you're aware. You're that man. And when David's left with the truth and the gravity and the reality of the situation, then he's able to repent. Because he says, I've sinned against God. And when we live honestly, we're able to actually change. It's when we live dishonestly and we choose to live in lies that we are prevented from growing and changing as people. And so here's the philosophical question for the remainder of our time together. Remember, I'm talking to all of us here, not one person in particular, okay? But the question is this: who are you really? Who are you really? Not the person that you want others to say you are, or your curated image. Who are you really? And the reason why we want to ask that question is not to beat ourselves or anyone else up, but it's because we want to be honest and truthful and live in reality. And when we know the truth about who we are and how well we're doing, that can inspire us to actually change. That's the beauty of truth, right? The truth will set you free. And it's my personal belief that humans tend to lie to themselves in two main ways. One way is we lie to ourselves saying that we are worse than we are, or we lie to ourselves saying that we are better than we are. And those are the two things I want to focus on for the next few minutes. So I've met a lot of people, especially a lot of Christians in my life, who they've been Christians for a long time, and then they say things like, I suck, I'm a loser, God doesn't love me, God can never use me. And it's fascinating to me because I've asked them, okay, yeah, great. Anyways, so just pick out the verse where it says those things. Can you find it for me? Oh, so God can never love you, right? So what about John 3:16? So God so loved the world that he gave his only son. Oh, God can never use someone like you, right? Because you're just a failure and a screw-up. Have you read this book? Do you know the people that are in here? It's shocking to me how people spend their lives with this destructive self-talk that just prevents them from moving forward or receiving from God or receiving from other people. It's like, I suck, I'm stupid, I'm a loser, I have no friends, no one likes you. Really? No one likes you. You have no friends. You can't contribute anything positive to this world that we live in. I doubt all those things. I don't think any of that's true. Who told you those things? So someone told you something when you were a kid, that you're a screw-up and you'll never amount to anything. Why do you still believe them as an adult? Or every thought that enters your mind, just because it's there, does that make it true? Not necessarily. Philippians 4:8, right, says, whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy. Think about such things. The first one, whatever is true. We should be focused on things that are true. Because what often happens is thoughts get into our mind. For example, Marty never texted me back. I texted him 4 seconds ago. Why hasn't he responded? It's probably because he hates me and he wants to destroy my life and he's out to get me. Right? And then it sounds ridiculous, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. Right? Oh, they didn't wave to me in the hallway or whatever. They never called me back or they didn't show up. And then you start spiraling and creating all these scenarios in your head. Why? And then it changes how we think and feel about ourselves and God and other people. None of it's true. We've just spiraled into just insanity. And it's like, but none of it's true, so what was the point of that? We need to pause and ask, is this true? Is what I'm spending this mental horsepower on, this mental energy on, is any of it true? Is any of it true? We have a choice. We can focus on God's truth, what he says about us, what he says about himself and his character, or we can focus on our own destructive internal dialogue. I believe God's suggesting that we focus on his truth. We focus on that. I think we need to, when we're spiraling, we need to hit the pause button and ask, is this true? Is it in this book? And if it's not in this book, and if it's not true, then we can just let it go. And we can replace those thoughts with thoughts that are true. So I know some people, they just have a list on their mirror, on their wall, or in a book of just tons of Bible verses. In their vehicle, they have them everywhere. Because when they start to spiral, they're like, I need some verses. Or they'll text themselves reminders, or they'll have alarm reminders, or whatever. So however that looks for any of us, that would be my suggestion. We want to build our mind, our internal dialogue on the truth in this book, not on our self-destructive tendencies, the lies that we tell ourselves, or the lies other people have told us that we believe about ourselves. Because just because someone says something, it doesn't mean it's true, doesn't mean it's right. God is truth. God is right. We should focus on that. And the second component is we tend to think that we are better than we are. Right? So we lie to ourselves in the sense that we're doing better than we think we are. What I find somewhat comical in this day that we live in is people feel like because I posted it or because I say it out loud, it's true. Like, oh yeah, I'm a great employee. Oh, really? Why don't we go ask your boss? I'm such a faithful friend. So if we surveyed your friends, would they agree? People just say stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, I said it. It's got to be true. But is it? Who are we really? See, what happens is, and I always get a kick out of celebrities, they get busted. And then they have to do their fake apologies just so their career doesn't tank. So they sit there and the cameras are on them. And it's like, I'm so sorry about this. It doesn't represent who I really am. And I'm just so ashamed and embarrassed about it. And I'm hoping, none of us are perfect. Hopefully, we can all move on. And it's like, oh, actually, it does represent who you really are. The problem is you had your guard down and you got busted. Why do we think we can separate our character from our actions? We can't. We can't. There's this idea, oh yeah, that doesn't represent who you are. Sure it does. Absolutely it does. Oh, you're lazy, you don't go to work on time, and the customers complain about you. Doesn't mean I'm a bad worker. Actually, it does. You should probably be fired. And guess what? The boss isn't a jerk. You're the problem. We just think, no, my character, no. Who I really am, what I think I am, that's what matters. No, it's your character. It's your actions. Our actions or inactions are linked to the strength of our character. We can't separate them. Quality actions are a result of quality character. Bad actions or bad inactions are a result of bad character. So who are we really? If we're going to look in the mirror, and we're to look and analyze our actions, once again, not in a condemning or a judgmental way, but in an enlightening way. Who are we really? What do our actions or our inactions, what do they say about us? What do they reveal about us? I think that when we are honest with God about who we really are and how we're really doing, I think that's when he can do the greatest work in us. Where he's like, awesome. Now we're talking. Like imagine, so if you're a parent, imagine your child coming up to you and just saying, you know what? I was wrong. You're smarter than me. You know more than me. I shouldn't hide things from you. I'm immature. I'm not wise. These things I did are terrible, and I want to change. Can you help me? What parent would be like, get out of my sight? You'd be like, that would be a dream. You wish your kids would say stuff like that. Now imagine if God's kids were the same way. You know what, God? You're right. I'm not going to live in denial. I'm not going to justify. I'm not just going to exclaim random things about myself, even though my actions don't line up with it. I'm going to be real. Let's have a real talk about who I really am, how I'm really doing. Not so I can get beat up about it, but so we can work on it. Because we can't work on things unless we're willing to be honest. We don't have trust without truth. So lying separates us from God and from others. And I believe in a spiritual sense, where truth sets us free. Lies are the language of Satan, and Satan is the father of lies. So when we choose to lie, especially to ourselves, we're resembling Satan more than God, because the truth sets us free. So when we're honest and truthful, it allows God to set us free. There's a quote I want to read. It's from a book called The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. And it's about, it takes place in Russia in the mid-1800s, and it's these three brothers. It's a murder mystery type thing. And one brother is like an intellectual socialite, the other's in the army, and the other's a Russian Orthodox priest. And so this book analyzes those different aspects of Russian society in the midst of like the complex human psyche. And so there's this Russian Orthodox priest who's pretty much nearing the end of his life. And he has this conversation with this young Russian Orthodox priest. And he's more or less giving him advice. And this is one of the most famous quotes from that book. And it fits into what we're talking about here today. And he says, above all, do not lie to yourself. A man who lies to himself and listens to his own lie comes to a point where he does not discern any truth, either in himself or anywhere around him, and thus falls into disrespect towards himself and others. Not respecting anyone, he ceases to love, and having no love, he gives himself up to the passions and coarse pleasures, in order to occupy and amuse himself, and in his vices reaches the degradation that comes from lying continually to others and to himself. In other words, Dostoevsky is saying that people don't just end up over here where their life's a total disaster. It starts when you begin to lie to yourself. And when you lie to yourself, what you're actually doing is you're complicit in your own self-destruction. Because then you close yourself off to, and I would spiritualize this a bit, to God and to other people. And then you just go down your path of the lies that you've created. You create your own reality. Have you ever talked to someone and like you have a conversation with a person and their interpretation of the conversation is light years different than yours? You're like, how did you get that from the conversation we had? Well, self-deception. That's how. Self-deception. We want to live more or less a life of illumination as opposed to self-deception, where we welcome God's feedback and the feedback of others. But in order to do that, we have to value truth and honesty. And when we don't, it doesn't lead us anywhere profitable or good. So God is truth. If we want to be close with him, if we want to have a deep relationship with him, we've got to value honesty. We've got to value truth. And if we want to have a deep relationship with other people, we've got to value truth as well. Now, what that means, it doesn't give us a license to not be tactful, but it does give us a license to be honest. Right? I was thinking about the band to come on up. There's I don't know if anyone follows the NFL, but there was an owner, Al Davis. His main slogan, he died years ago, was just win, baby. Kind of a cutthroat guy who just cared about winning. So he dies. And everyone pretty much does a eulogy about him, about how he's a saint. And it sounds like, hold up. No. We know who my dad was. Well, why are we playing these games? My dad was ruthless. He was a jerk. All he cared about was winning. And you know what? He was proud of it. And when you lie about who he was, that dishonors his memory and his legacy. And everyone went, oh, okay. It's like we feel this need where we've just got to gussy things up a bit. And we're like, just got to alter the truth of it. We've got to fight that. We've got to fight it. God wanted the Israelites and this nation to be founded on truth, on honesty, on reality. He wants our lives to be founded on those exact same things. And when we are honest people, where our word means something, and we have an honest relationship with God and other people, that is completely and utterly refreshing to the deceptive and manipulative world that we live in. You know, talk about being a light in a dark place. Have your word mean something. Be people that are honest, but in a tactful, kind way. And be receptive to the honesty of other people, rather than defensive. No games, no manipulation, no tactics going on. Just, I'm going to live in truth and the freedom that the truth provides. That's an incredible way and opportunity to be a light in a society that is, I would say, darkened by self-deception and manipulation of other people. God wants us to be truthful, honest people. So ask this question, not in a way for any of us to beat ourselves up, but who am I really? Just like David had the mirror in front of him. You are that man. And then with Uriah, he would have been confronted with that reality too, right? So who are you? And if stuff gets illuminated, it's not an opportunity to beat yourself up, but it's an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to ask God, and to ask others, to invite them in. Well, what can I do so I can live with integrity in this area? Because our actions and our character are linked. And when we work on our actions or our inactions, things that we need to start doing, then our character is it buttresses us, right? It's a stronger character. So we develop character, we develop relationships when we're honest and truthful with other people. And when we do that, we're a light in a very dark world that we live in. So I'll turn it over to you, and I want to thank all of you for your time.